Hey everyone, and welcome to the Hazy Sports Podcast. We've got a great episode today. We've got our conference finals underway. We've got the Memorial Cup kicking off last night, and we've got major upsets in the Hockey World Championships. Charlie, how's your week been?
Well, it's been like it's kind of like been watching a soap opera and fast forward here. It was up and then down and then back up. It's been quite a week, as far as my fandom goes. But yeah, awesome week of hockey. Good to have it narrowed down to just a couple things to keep an eye on.
Yeah, we were just talking about that offline. As exciting as that first round was, trying to stay on top of 8 playoff series was kind of crazy. So it feels a little like my brain feels like it's calmer and not spinning around in as many directions. But we do have the conference finals, the Memorial Cup, and World Hockey Championships. So there's still plenty of hockey action to talk about. That's for sure.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Okay, well, before we get into the conference championships, we want to do a little bit of a post-mortem on the Leafs Panthers series because we did our last episode on the Sunday of the holiday weekend, and we were getting hyped for Game 7, and we haven't had a chance to really kind of debrief on what happened there with Game 7. Obviously, a bit of a letdown in terms of the performance the Leafs delivered. I'm kind of glad that we're actually talking about it here almost a week later because it gives you a chance to just step back and get a little perspective. Because some of the reactions that Monday and Tuesday were a little over the top. But what's your general thoughts as you've had sort of the week to digest that series?
So on a personal note, I feel really dumb for falling for this. And I'm even on record as saying, I know this will be the stupidest thing I've ever said, but this Leafs team seems to be different this year. You get the stories coming out, Matthews is injured and all that stuff. And I mean, that happens with every series. But when you have, arguably the worst game of the season 5 days before, and now you have this opportunity to completely rewrite the narrative of your season, of your team, and you probably play worse, right? Like I would say it was a worse game than game 5. I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know how you come back from that. Like it was just awful.
yeah, it was pretty devastating. And it's funny because I was thinking I now know how the Leafs fans feel a little bit. Like when we were talking there on Sunday, I kind of switched from podcast mode to let's go Leafs. I'm buying in. It was the first time all playoffs where I let myself get emotionally invested in the Leafs winning just because I thought it would be such an amazing story, such a great opportunity for these key guys to change their legacy. I thought what an exciting moment to sit down and watch this game and see potentially that moment in hockey history. And and wow, what a deflating feeling.
Just right off the bat, like I don't think I've seen a team dominate a first period. Like I remember they flashed the graphic up. I think it was like 17 minutes into the game, and the Panthers had almost 12 minutes of offensive zone time. Like the Leafs they'd already given up. Like it was unreal.
Yeah, it was tough to watch, especially when you get yourself all pumped up and excited and you're ready. We do the live stream before to get fired up. We got a couple beers flowing and singing along to the national anthems there. And Sarah's like, "What's going on down there?" He's like singing "Oh Canada," and I was getting myself fired up. And wow, it didn't take long for the steam and excitement to come out of that one.
Just gone. And yeah, I blame the beers that I was having for clouding my judgment because that was clearly the wrong decision very early in that game. And you gotta hand it to Florida. Like I know I hate the cliche they just wanted it more, but it was pretty obvious that they just wanted it more. Like it was just embarrassing. When your fans are walking out of a game 7 with like 12 minutes left, should almost be issuing refunds at that point.
Yeah, so tough watch. We talked about it even before that game. It's either the headline the next day is either going to be this is a team of destiny or we need to blow this shit up and a bunch of people get run out of town. Our usual whipping boy, Mitch Marner, seems to be the real lightning rod and take the bulk of the criticism. Certainly, he didn't have a great game, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you feel like he deserves as much of the blame as he tends to get?
Yeah, I don't know why he's the guy all the time. I mean, obviously he's one of the stars, but they were all shit. Like I don't remember a play that Nylander really made in that game either. I don't the defense that had been pretty good up until that point wasn't exactly lighting it up. Morgan Riley looked like mid-season Morgan Riley when he was turning it over and you know, maybe that's a outcome of just the way Florida's pressuring them all the time, but I don't know. Mitch does take it hard. We've talked about this. Toronto sports likes to focus in on one guy, and that's going to be the whipping boy. But nobody was good. Like nobody was
Yeah.
good in that game.
So you knew some changes were going to come, following that loss. The first domino has already fallen with Brendan Shanahan. He's
Yeah.
out at president. I kind of struggle to even understand what the role of the president is, to be honest. Like you've got the GM there deciding on sort of who's on the team. You've got Berube there coaching the team. I guess the president's there more from a culture standpoint, but then you've got the Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment board there. There's just a lot of cooks in the kitchen, it seems like, on the Leaf side.
And now that he's been fired, I don't know if you've seen all these stories coming out of trades that he apparently nixed that Dubas was planning on making or had the framework in place. And now you're kind of wondering, like, maybe letting go Dubas was the wrong decision. Because apparently I read this morning that obviously this was before Nyes was this year's Matthew Nyes, but apparently there was a trade in place with Chicago for Marc-Andre Fleury and Brandon Hagel for Matthew Nyes, which this is a couple years ago, obviously. Which you know to have both those guys, not so much Fleury this year, but the couple years earlier may have made a difference. And then there was another one he had. Apparently, Marner was on his way out of town, and that was right around the time that Dubas got fired. So apparently, it just sounds like Shanahan's job was to keep the team mediocre and shitty.
Well, he's gone now, so hopefully that streamlines things. I was reading an article where they're saying they're not going to really replace that role, which probably makes sense. They're going to give a little more ownership to Tree Living. I think Tree Living and Berube is a good GM coach combo right there. And I think when you take a step back and, as you know, from a Leafs perspective, take the emotion and the disappointment out of that game 7 and look at what you got to still feel pretty good going forward. I like a lot of the moves Tree Living made since he's come in. I like the culture and the energy that Berube's created. You got Nyes coming up as one of the better power forwards in the game, and you got a great goaltending duo. You've got the defense, pretty solid there, and you still got a lot of good depth guys up front. Probably Marner needs a change of scenery. That's no secret. That's what everybody's been talking about, but I think that's going to be a win-win for everybody. I think he gets a change of scenery. I wouldn't be surprised to see him take it to another level in a different market. And also, I think on the Leafs side, freeing up some of that salary to maybe build in a little bit more depth and just change the dynamic. Just if for whatever reason that combination of core guys wasn't working, I don't think you need to blow the whole thing up. I think shifting Marner out, bringing in a couple pieces, to me, sets you up pretty good for next year.
It's just, and maybe this is like the social media era, but it's always the sky's falling like the second you're out. Like even with Edmonton last year when they lost in game 7 by 1 goal of the finals, it was like, this guy's shit. He's got to go. We got to get this, we need to retool. GM should be fired. And it's over the top. The only thing I think they need to do is if you can get rid of Morgan Riley, I would do that. They need a good puck mover. Like you got your heavy guys at the back, but they need someone because that's what killed him, right? If you can't move the puck out of your own zone fast enough against a forecheck like that, you're toast. So they need someone who can do that role.
I think he's got a no trade clause in his contract,
Oh yeah, everybody
unfortunately.
fucking does.
But But yeah, he's ready for a change too. He's been in Toronto for a while. Maybe a bit like the Marner thing, he might benefit from a change of scenery, and the Leafs would benefit from getting a fresh skill set in there for, like you said, more of that puck moving defenseman.
These Leaf fans don't learn, right? Like, so we're going to drive Marner out of town, and I work with quite a few Leaf fans, and they're already saying, oh, yeah, Easton Cowan, he'll be able to step right in there. So the first time that this guy's a -3, if he makes the team even, now we're going to be starting the shit cycle all over again. It's hilarious.
But yeah, that kind of brings me to the next topic, because I guess the other big theme around the Leafs this week is this whole idea of the pressure playing in Toronto, and it kind of got stimulated when Marchand and Kachuk were even talking about sort of how the media and the fans just beat the pressure into them, and so it's become a very polarizing topic when you're listening to podcasts and hearing sports talk. You got one camp that sort of agrees with what Marchand and Kachuk are saying, and then you got another one's like, "Fuck that! These guys make millions of dollars. They should be, they should be able to block that out." And I don't think anybody's wrong. I think you'd be lying to yourself to say that pressure doesn't add an element of a challenge that other markets don't face. But whether you see that as a positive or a negative, I guess it depends on the type of player you have. Like, certain guys do thrive in that environment, and some guys don't. And I think Mitch is an example of a guy that, just he's listening to everything that everybody's saying on social media, and it's getting into his head. It just didn't seem to be a good fit there.
Yeah, I'm kind of, it's a tough call. Like, obviously if you're a fan of a team, you want your best players to perform, but maybe it's a combination of the other guys aren't stepping up, so Mitch is kind of left out on an island, or whoever out in the same, right? Like, maybe in a different situation you see a different Mitch. Like, clearly in the Four Nations, I thought I was writing him off early in the tournament, and then he gets in these positions with, McDavid and a Braden Point, guys who have won, and you kind of elevate. So when no one on your team has won shit, I guess you don't really know how to raise it to that next level.
Yeah, I think the Mitch Marner story, there's still lots to be told there. I think we're gonna see him take it to another level, honestly. I'm not even sure if it was the pressure as much as it is just it's almost like a toxic relationship, where there's this lack of trust or something. It seems like there's just too many times where he's made a pass that people didn't back check hard enough. And it kind of gets seared into your mind so that you're just waiting for it and ready to jump on the guy where for whatever reason, that relationship between Leafs fans and media and Marner is not working. But it's crazy because he is still one of the best offensive talents in the league, and there's
Like,
teams. Yeah.
I personally would not. I think they're insane to just walk away from a 100-point guy, right? If you look at who's available this summer, it's a significant drop off from what you were just saying. Okay, see you later, too. But I mean, I think the writing's on the wall, but I think you should be careful what you wish for, kind of thing.
Yeah, and the other thing I was thinking about, when you talk about these big markets, they say, yeah, there's more pressure, but when you're successful, you're a hero in those places. When you think of the great Yankees, you think of like the old New York Knicks teams and these big markets. But what I think the difference is Toronto is, like, you seen the Knicks games, right? Yeah, there's pressure there, but that home court is electric. Like, that
Yeah.
is a home court advantage. The Leafs have all the pressure, and they're not even getting a home ice advantage. I was texting you during that game 7 thinking, like, did they like mute the crowd noise? The game was still in reach. They were down a goal or two, and it's like there was just no enthusiasm, no fight back, no support. Like, whereas you have those big markets like Boston and New York, and their fans are like, okay, the team needs us now. Let's try to give them an emotional boost.
Well,
And
even
you just didn't see it.
even by contrast, like 2 nights later, Florida's kicking the shit out of Carolina, but that was one of the loudest crowds I think I've heard in a while. Like, and they're losing, and they're trying to get the players back into it. Yeah, the Toronto crowd in game 7, 5 minutes in, it was like a fucking library in there. Like, it's just embarrassing for such a great hockey city Where's the
Yeah,
noise?
I'm kind of glad the Leafs talk is done here. This is for our podcast. I mean, it makes for good podcast content, but it also does get a little fatiguing over the past week, where you hear 1,000 different opinions on everything and what the Leafs need to do. But I still think they've got a good foundation there, so there's nothing to be too
Oh,
worried about in
next
Leafs
year.
land heading
Next
into
year's
next
their
year.
year.
Next year, this team's different. So, all right, let's shift gears to the Western Conference Finals. Oilers Stars series tied up at 1. Edmonton with a pretty convincing 3-0 performance last night. Game 1, a little bit of a different story. It seemed like they had control for the first two periods. A few bad penalties in a row. Boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden, they're down a goal, gripping the sticks a little tight. Dallas gets a little confident. Edmonton lets that first one get away, but they're coming away from Dallas with a split in the series. So still got to be feeling pretty good as they move back to Edmonton. Whoa.
Yeah, for 5 out of 6 periods, this series hasn't even been close. Like the bottom end of Dallas's defense can't handle any of these guys. 5-on-5, it's not even close. So if you can stay out of the stupid penalties, like you can't be taking a penalty 100 feet away from the play, especially with the Dallas power play that's been like incredible. And when you got a goalie who can fucking go on tilt at a drop of a hat, like they had that game. It was sewn up. All you had to do was see it out. And 3 stupid penalties in a row, and now all of a sudden you're on your heels. And then they got a power play right after that. And it was just a complete disaster. I don't know what's going on with that Edmonton power play that was, the best in league history 2 years ago or a year ago. Now they can't seem to string 3 passes together without somebody fumbling it or whatever. In the first game too, Ottinger was so good in the first 2 periods. Like it could have easily been 6-1 Edmonton going into the third. He made some incredible saves and bailed out a few of his defensemen. But last night was total domination. Like to hold that team to, I think they had 24 shots on net. And you got to remember, Edmonton's doing this without their best defenseman, who is supposed to be back for game 3. But now I don't even know if you bring him back. Like if he's still laboring a bit, just let him sit it out until you actually need him.
Get him as rested as you can before it's Panther time.
Right, right, exactly.
You did get the full Stu Skinner experience, the whole range of the spectrum from the first two games. Kind of an enigma. He's got 3 shutouts in 4 games, and the one where he didn't, he let in 6 goals. Well, I guess was one of those an empty netter, so
Yeah, one
5
was an
goals.
empty
But
netter.
gotta hang
You
on for the
never know.
ride with Stu.
It's like I'll defend the guy. I mean, he's in 3 years as a full-time starter, he lost to the champs, won the Western Conference, lost in game 7 of the final, and now he's back in the Western Conference final again with some help from his backup. But like even last night at 3-0, there's like 6 minutes to go and Dallas was really pushing and they almost scored. He made that crazy slide across the crease. If that goes in, I'm probably sweating it out for the next 5.5 minutes because he's just so up and down. Like I've never seen a goalie constantly be looking over his shoulders all the time. Like, how do you not know where the play is right now? And he's always sliding and flopping around. And I think part of it is he's so big that sometimes he kind of bails himself out because he's such a big guy because he's always out of position. It's mind-boggling. But you can't argue with the good Stu. I mean, he's doing what he has to do, and the defense is limiting what he has to do, which I think is the key with this guy.
It'll be interesting to see how that continues, but with the way Edmonton dominated 5 out of the 6 periods on the road, you gotta like their chances as they head back home for a couple games.
Yeah, the only shitty part is it's an afternoon game tomorrow, and they never seem to do too great on those early start games. So we'll see how. Not to mention, why are they playing at 3 o'clock? I don't understand.
When you have a Sunday game and the whole country is off work, you'd think you could find a better sweet spot for that
Sweet
game,
spot.
but
Yeah, I was confused by the time. Not to mention now all these guys lose out on there's, the rest factor because they're hopping on a plane today. And anyways,
Yeah,
just
and
another awesome scheduling job.
that's right when I have my Sunday afternoon nap too, so it's kind of conflicting with that. But all right, well, let's jump over to the East. Charlie, I've had to be very creative throughout the last 5 or 6 podcasts every time we get to the Canes, whatever series the Canes are playing in, to try to find some stimulating topics to discuss. I'm done trying here. I don't have much for you. I mean, I do feel bad for them here. Everybody's shitting on them because they're like the most boring team in the playoffs. Now they've gotten their ass kicked both games at home. They're now 0-14 in their last 4 conference finals. Florida seemed to have gotten their head even before this series started, because you heard them talking about, we're not going to let them run our goalie. We're going to do that to them. You know, we're going to take it to them before they take it to us. And it seemed to just take them out of their game. Just almost the anticipation of what Florida was going to do has them a little bit off.
I got a perfect parallel here for you. You remember 2 years ago when the Kirk Cousin Vikings were 14-2, but everybody kind of knew, I don't think they're that good. I
Yeah.
see the exact same thing with the Hurricanes here. Like, no doubt there's some talent on that team, but I don't think anybody thought they were that great and could be pushed around. And now when you're up against a big, tough team, just like the Minnesota Vikings were that year, you end up getting your ass kicked. And I'm not saying they're frauds, but I think they kind of are frauds. And you're right. Like, Florida just dominating. Like, it's not even close. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we definitely have to give Florida a little bit of credit here too, because they're absolutely loaded. But I just don't see much pushback from this Carolina team at all.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, to be honest, I'm not watching these games from start to finish, checking in and seeing Florida jump out to the early leads and think, oh, well,
It's
I
probably
got
it.
better things I could do in my life with my life in that next 2 hours than keep watching that games. Yeah, it's looking like Florida's going to make short work of the Canes. I guess we shouldn't get too ahead of ourselves on the Oilers, but a good chance we could see a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup Finals, which would make for a pretty good hockey to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely rounding out that way. Who knows? Maybe Carolina figures something out, but have you watched any of how they do the on the bench interviews now?
Yeah,
Have you seen any with Brindamore? Like, he looks like he's just tweaked right out. He's like
yeah.
constantly doing this. And I don't know if he's just thinking, well, I'm getting fired in 2 more games. Like, I don't know. He looks like he's either on something or he's just so stressed.
Rod
Like,
the Bod. Yeah, I've always heard he's been an intense guy. I think he's squeezed as much out of the roster as you can ask for, but they're just not the same team as Florida.
no, they don't have the grit that you need right now. And they're small, right? Like, we said this when they traded Rantanen for another small forward, and then they were trying to get Marner, another small forward.
Interesting, just when you talk about him being tweaked up, and then you see on the other side, like some of the great coaches like Paul Maurice and Berube, they're staying calm and cool and projecting that onto their team.
Level-headed, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, not a lot more to say about that series. I mean, we're only a few games in, so I think there's more to talk about as these series kind of ratchet up a little bit closer to the end. But at this point, why don't we jump into our weekly hazing?
Wave it off. Fuck, let's go. Fucking wave that stick at me again. You're gonna fucking eat it. Bare fucking teeth. You want to get knocked out again? We got a guy for you.
So, Charlie, first question for you this week kind of follows up on a little bit of what we were talking about with the Leafs and Marner. Assuming Marner does go, what's the best landing spot for him? And from a team perspective, do you want to give a max contract to a guy that hasn't really proven it in the playoffs before?
I thought the news cycle after Sunday was hilarious because 50% was Marner's shit, got to get him out of town. And then the other 50% is, do we have enough room to add Marner to our team? Like, everybody wants this guy, which I get, 100-point guy. So I looked at the teams with the most money available for free agency. So you got the Sharks, Blue Jackets, Ducks, Carolina, which would be absolutely hilarious if he nixes the trade and then ends up going there for nothing. You got the Blackhawks, the Islanders, and then a little further down, you got Detroit, LA, and actually the Jets have some money too. I don't know. For me, I think LA would be awesome for him because LA is pretty loaded on the offensive side and they could use a playmaker. Like, I think they got a lot of goal scorers. LA would be a good one. I don't know. Philly would be an interesting spot because I think the same thing. They got enough goal scorers, maybe need some playmakers, but I don't know that they're ready to splurge on a star like that. What are your thoughts?
Well, as a Wings fan, like Mitch, pack the car. We're 3 hours west on the 401. You could be here in no time. You'd be a instant fan favorite. We're not going to pin every loss on your shoulders. You're going to be a great fit. No, all the spots, you said, yeah, he'd be a great fit. I think with a guy like that, if you can make the room for him, like, how is he not a great fit on almost any of those teams? Not only is he giving you the 100 points in offense, he's one of those guys that's going to elevate other guys on the team. And I think a change of scenery, like bring him to Hockey Town. Like I said, he'd be a fan favorite right away. I think you'd see his game go up to another level just being out of that Toronto market. I just keep picturing him in that red and white uniform. And Detroit actually had a great power play last year, was at the top of the league, but they had a lot of trouble scoring 5-on-5. Mitch is going to help a lot with that. I think he'd be a great fit, but of course, a lot of teams could make that argument, but it's...
Yeah, if I selfishly, I'd like to see him go to Columbus just because I thought they were one of the funnest teams to watch this year, and they got the room. And you throw a guy on that with a team that's already, a high-scoring team. I think he'd be a great fit there, but I'm not sure that's the city's a real draw. But
Wherever he ends up, I predict he will go from 100 points to maybe 120 points, and I think he's going to have more fun playing hockey than he has since he's been with the Knights.
Guaranteed.
All right, well, let's switch over to another topic here. We talked about Florida and the Canes series and the way Florida's kind of wiping the floor with them. Is Florida's path to the Cup this year about as easy a path as we can remember in recent times?
It's definitely seeming that way. I mean, especially after you heard how many of the Tampa Bay guys were not close to 100%. They kind of wiped the floor with them. Then you get to play what everyone calls as the softest team in the league, which somehow they made it to 7 games. I kind of give a little more respect to the Leafs in that sense, like how they managed to even push them to 7 games. And now you see them just dummy in Carolina. It's pretty soft, I would say.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I took a look at Florida's path to the Cup last year, and they had to go through a healthier Tampa Bay. Then they played Boston, an experienced veteran group there. Then they played the Rangers, who won the President's Trophy. And then, of course, had to take the Oilers to 7 games to win it. So compared to their road last year, it's been pretty smooth sailing, and definitely over the past several years, the Western Conference has been more of a gauntlet. And even you're playing Carolina in the conference finals. Carolina had to beat a banged up New Jersey team, a Washington Capitals team that was, good in the regular season, but not really built for a playoff run. So yeah, they're going to be pretty fresh if they
I would think
polish
so, yeah.
Carolina off in 4 or 5. But yeah, it's hard to say. Certainly, I can't remember a much easier path to the Cup than this one. Okay, last question on the weekly hazing here. What happened to Team Canada at the World Championships? We're humming right along, and all of a sudden get to the knockout stage, and boom goes the dynamite out to Denmark.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I was following along because I was working, and you just check the score every once in a while. And it was Canada was up and they're heading into the third. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll see this out. And just watching the recap, like they're lucky it was a 1-goal game. Like Denmark I believe they had 23 shots in the third period and just kept coming and coming and coming. And it's an amazing win, right? It's not a Canada team where we're sending over, our average to okay guys who just want to get some more reps in. Like, there's legit stars playing in this tournament. And, all due respect to the Danes because they got it done and it was against a pretty decent Canada team.
Yeah, I gotta think McKinnon's gonna be full rage mode this summer because he's probably coming over thinking, okay, that was a heartbreaking loss to Dallas in the first round. Let me get that taste out of my mouth with a gold medal for the summer, and ends up with one of the upsets in the World Championship history. Kind of tough to see. And like you said, I actually was barely even paying attention. I was sort of like, I saw it was Denmark in the first round, and I sort of thought, wake me up when we get to the US or Sweden or somebody, and I actually have to start paying attention. So when you texted me to say they lost, I thought, what the hell? I had to go back and see what happened there. And you sent me a kind of a crazy stat from the 1949 World Championship. Canada beat Denmark 47-0. So here we are all these years later. The Danes have been sitting in Copenhagen plotting their revenge for 5 or 6 generations, and they finally got it done. So some sweet satisfaction there in Denmark. I can't say I'm totally broken up about it. We talked about it. It's like, yeah, it's kind of fun to see that Canada had some more of their A type talent out there, but at the end of the day, I'm never going to be that emotionally invested in the World Championships. Part of me even was like kind of happy for Denmark in a weird way, because like this one, if that happened in the Olympics, that would be a different story, but they're one of the host countries. Kind of cool to see them get that moment. I don't think it'll have a big negative impact on Canadian hockey moving forward, but the one thing I will say is I think maybe the international ice surface kind of levels the playing field a little bit from a talent standpoint, because I don't know, have you ever played on an international sized rink before?
No, but I was talking to somebody about this. I don't understand how, if we got such fast guys and such tape to tape passing, shouldn't we be better at this with more space?
Well, that does make sense. My only perspective I can bring to it is I played in a rec league for 3 or 4 years where there was like three pads in the arena, and 2 of them were regular size ice and 1 was international. And I hated playing on the international size. Like, obviously I'm not playing with the speed and passing ability of these pros, but it threw your time. When you're used to playing on a smaller rink, it throws your timing and sense of where everybody should be at any given time. Like, if you're on the boards and typically you're 3 strides out to getting into a good shooting position, now you're 6 strides out to getting there. It does take some getting used to. Now you got to think like, the best players in the world should be able to adjust to that pretty quickly. But I do think a team like Denmark that has mostly guys that are probably playing on that type of international ice all year round, they still shouldn't be beating Canada, but it is a factor that can maybe level the playing field in terms of just understanding how to play a system within that space that works. But I used to hate playing on the big ice. Anyways, I guess that's it for Crosby, McKinnon, and those guys. Still good learning experience for some of the younger guys, and we'll see if the Danes can keep the hot sticks going and riding into the to the gold medal. All right, well, that wraps up the weekly hazing. Now it's time for our report card.
I've been reviewing your work. Quite frankly, it stinks. These reports you handed in, it's almost as if you have no business training at all.
All right, I'm going to give an F to TSN's coverage of the Memorial Cup. Not so much the pregame and in between periods, but why are we doing on-ice interviews with the players in the middle of the game? And you're never going to get any good information. And they're asking, I can't remember the guy from Medicine Hat that they were interviewing. They're like, what do you got to do to get going? And he's giving, the same cliched, we just got to, take it a shift at a time. And then the girl signs off saying, okay, thanks. And now you got to wait till she gets off the ice Then the kid's actually allowed to go back to the bench and talk with his team. Just a complete waste of time. And what is this gaining? I don't get it. So big F for the on ice interviews.
I'm going to give an A plus to Crosby and Macklin Celebrini at the World Championships. Even though we lost in a big upset to Denmark, seeing the clips of those two working together on face-offs and different aspects of the game, and just seeing the ear-to-ear smile on Celebrini being around Crosby, it's just such a cool thing to see, that Captain Canada, you know, passing some of that information and experience on to the young guys that are going to be coming up, and, you know, might be Celebrini 10 years from now wearing that C. And so it's kind of cool to see that transition going on at the World Championships. So A plus.
Okay, I got an A plus for SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who was just named NBA MVP. Pretty crazy. I work with a couple people whose kids went to high school with him. He didn't make his high school basketball team. He actually went to a second school so he could play basketball. You know, not the greatest start with the Clippers, but you could see there was something there. They make probably one of the shittiest trades of all time. And now this guy is just automatic. Like, it's, you can almost pencil him in for 30 a game. I know it's not the style everybody loves to see, but he's got that mid-range or take it to the basket, and you're either going to hit him or he's going to score. It's kind of a throwback. But, you know, if he can see this out and win a championship and an MVP in the same year, that's pretty impressive. So A plus.
Nice. I'm going to go B for the show Around the Horn. Just wrapped up a 22-year run. Cool to have a show that has a run like that in the midst of other ESPN shows that seem to all be just people screaming ridiculous hot takes at each other, not actually listening to each other. I can't stand those shows. So, you know, I always liked Tony Reali from when he was Stat Boy on PTI. Thought he did a great job bringing in different people over on the panel. I didn't love every person they had in there, but they just had their last show on Friday. So just wanted to give a little respect to a show that was kind of unique, liked the host, and had a good 22-year run. B for Around the Horn.
Okay, kind of piggybacking off that, I've got an F for Stephen A. Smith. I don't know if you saw him going off about the Leafs, thinking that he's making some big original joke, calling them the Dallas Cowboys, and like doing a dance and laughing, thinking he's, you know, just come up with the greatest one-liner of all time. People have been saying that for at least the last 5 years anyways. You got to get some new material there, Stephen. Plus, I just think that guy's an absolute joke anyways, so an F for Stephen A. Smith.
I'm going to go with an A plus for the Indiana Pacers. Keeping it on basketball here for a bit. What a great comeback at MSG against the Knicks in game one. Down 9 with less than a minute to go. They ended up winning it. Halliburton's bringing back the choke move, maybe a little too early, but pretty cool, and just giving me shades of the Pacers-Knicks rivalry from when we were younger. Spike Lee still sitting there, MSG going nuts. Pacers won game 2 last night, so not probably what the NBA wants to see from a ratings perspective with Indiana in the finals, but in terms of that moment they gave us in game 1, got to give an A plus to that.
All right, finally here, I'm going to say a B for the newest Final Destination movie. And it has nothing to do with the actual movie. The movie was actually terrible, like just a horrible, shitty movie. But they have mastered the art of this, like creating anxiety, because they set it up. You know someone's about to die, but there's like a million things that can contribute to it. And you start thinking about it in your head, oh, this is what's going to happen. And then you'll see something else come into the screen. And I'm not a big heights guy, but there's a scene where there's some heights involved. And like, I was actually getting anxious for the people in this scene. And whoever's coming up with these death scenes is doing a pretty good job. So we'll give it a B.
Nice. I might have to check that out. I've never seen any of the Final Destination movies.
Oh,
so
you should watch it. It's interesting concept. So the idea is someone has cheated death, and now death is following this person because in the natural order of life, this person was next to die.
Okay. So it's pretty edge of your seat sort of
Yeah,
thriller.
I mean, we're on the fifth one, so you can imagine what the story's like at this point. Like, it's basically all just based around these insane death scenes, but good concept and originally.
Oh, cool. Well, I'll have to start with number one and go from there.
Definitely.
All right, well that covers our report card. Now a few things to wrap up here, Charlie, before we close up for the day. Memorial Cup kicked off last night with a great game. Medicine Hat against Rimouski. A 5-4 game that was just back and forth the whole way. Highlight goal from top prospect Gavin McKenna. Gotta mention him on at least once on every podcast. But yeah, what a great start to the tournament. We got London against Moncton tonight at 6.
Yeah, I'll be watching that one too. One of the things about the Memorial Cup that's kind of underrated, and it's one of the best traditions, is the host team has to wear a commemorative jersey or some sort of special jersey. I wasn't crazy about the one last night, but I like that idea, and I think it's something that makes it sort of unique. But on the same note, could the Moncton Wildcats not have spent more than about $10 on their logo design? Like, it looks like something my son drew when he was like 8.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Thundercats from back when we were kids there. Yeah, and then like we mentioned before, London plays Medicine Hat with what seems like should be the marquee matchup of the round robin. So that's Tuesday night.
Tuesday,
So check that one out. Another thing I wanted to chat with you about is they just approved in the NFL this flag football thing. Have you heard about that, where they're allowing NFL players to play in the Olympics on flag football? And apparently there's quite a few NFL players that have expressed an interest. Like even Patrick Mahomes says he wants to be there if they'll take him. I think the main question I had for you is, do you think just because you're the best wide receiver or cornerback or quarterback in the NFL, does that necessarily translate over to being the best at flag football? Or do you think there's enough of a difference in the game of flag football? Like, obviously there's no tackling. There's a lot of guys in the NFL that are in there because of their ability to tackle well, whereas maybe there's like some CFL guys that might actually be more
yeah.
springy and better in the flag football situation.
Well, my guess is if Patrick Mahomes can dice up the best in the NFL, he's probably not too worried about some cornerbacks from New Zealand.
Good point. Yeah. So
I don't know.
He'll probably.
I see what you're saying, but I think football, I mean, it's all speed, right? Speed and hands. And the only thing that stops these guys is people being able to push them or get them off their spot. But it would be pretty crazy, if there is some guy from fucking Zimbabwe or something that's got a cannon arm that can pick people apart.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking, like, you might be right on the receivers and cornerbacks and stuff, but in the running back side of things, like, it becomes all speed and cutting, right? Whereas in the NFL, you have to be able to take hits. So there might be some running backs out there and that couldn't quite make the NFL that could be great at flag football. And I just didn't know if it was enough of a difference. Like, I was thinking about roller hockey versus ice hockey, if that would be an apt comparison, or I guess because you're running on both NFL and flag football, that it's probably pretty similar. It's probably a lot like what they do when they have their no pads practice days.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, could you imagine if the U.S. didn't win the gold medal? Like, can the college guys go and play in this? Just not
I think
professionals?
so. Yeah, I
Well,
think
then if they don't beat everybody by 60, this would be like a dream team scenario, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're talking about. So I gotta say, I'm kind of interested in this in watching
intrigued.
this. Yeah. So last sporting thing I want to talk to you about is on the baseball side of the things. Colorado Rockies have the worst record of the worst 50 game start in modern baseball history right now. And what jumped out to me is when I saw a highlight and the other team hit a home run, and you see the Colorado Stadium, there's like 12 people in the outfield, and I thought, it's game 50. They still have 112 games to play. Imagine how much of a grind that would be, being on a shitty baseball team and you have a 162 game season to go through. I know these guys get paid millions of dollars and they're professionals, but that's got to be hard to go above and beyond to be the best player you can be when you're in that situation.
Yeah, like even the good teams, you'll hit a lull in a season and you'll lose 5 or 6 in a row. If you're already got nobody showing up and like you said, 100+ games to go, that's the sign of true professionalism if you can go out and battle through that.
Yeah, like if you're out for a few beers and you're like, oh, should probably call it a night. We got a game tomorrow, and you've lost the last 8 games by an average of 8 runs. You might be like, fuck it, let's get another round. Maybe skip leg day or something. It'd be hard to gear yourself up to bring it every night. Anyways, so that kind of wraps up everything we wanted to chat about today. We've got Panthers Canes game 3 tonight. We've got OKC Minnesota on the NBA side, another game 3, and we've got Knights Moncton at 6 o'clock. So pretty decent little day lined up. So yeah, enjoy your Saturday, Charlie. Enjoy the games. I'm away next weekend, so our schedule might be a little bit different. We're working that out, but we'll stay tuned for some updates on the IG, and we'll let you guys know where we land on that. But other than that, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you guys soon.